Brian Hyland. And the Joker went wild from 1966, Dolly Parton, Do I Ever Cross Your Mind? What a gorgeous lady that Dolly Parton is. Now, Hearing Awareness Week was held recently with the aim to eliminate the stigma, isolation, lack of work opportunities, and also to improve the overall quality of life for people with deafness or hearing impairment. And one in 6 Australians are affected by hearing loss. That's, in fact, an estimated 3.5 million people. The lovely Lisa Evans, founder and director of Speaking Savvy, who spent over 20 years as a midwife working in neonatal intensive care units both in Australia and overseas, found that she lost her hearing due to a virus pretty much overnight, and she joins us in the studio now. And you're hearing pretty well now, aren't you, Lisa?
I am.
You are. Look, thank you very much for coming in. My friends growl at me because I've got bad hearing in my left ear, and I've had so for 35 years. Woke up one morning and I thought, gee, things are quiet. Turn over the other side, I could hear quite well. But you learn to live with it, I suppose. But my friends growl at me a lot. So I can appreciate if you have an extreme problem with your hearing, which is what happened to you.
That's right, yeah, and it is quite debilitating. It's one of those invisible things that's very frustrating, and losing something that you take for granted, that you just have, and then one day you literally wake up without. It's a challenge, yeah.
How did it happen to you?
Just very suddenly with no warning. I was not unwell. It was just a day like any other day, and I woke up and fell to the floor. I had extreme vertigo, so the virus actually attacked the nerves as well as the whole balance centre.
Oh, that's awful.
So I couldn't even lift the head, yeah.
That would have been a very scary moment for you.
It was. Wasn't sure what was happening. I knew that it was something significant, but really didn't know what was happening.
I've never heard of that happening before. Is it quite common?
Apparently it is common, and for some people the hearing does return, but for a lot it is unfortunately permanent.
So from that day, where did it take you? I mean, you were a neonatal nurse prior to that. You didn't stay in that occupation?
No, I didn't. That was the career that I'd done, and I'd loved for over 20 years. It was really my dream job. But initially, after the initial period of acute illness where I had to deal with the vertigo, luckily that settled down, and then came the reality that the hearing loss was permanent, and there was nothing that could be done because of the particular type of hearing loss. That was what I was told at the time. So it wasn't practical to continue in the high-tech, challenging area of neonatal intensive care. You need to have your 100% senses. It's an emergency environment. You've got to be able to react quickly, and I couldn't do the job to the best of my abilities. So I moved on into the public service.
Okay, how was that for you?
That was a challenge, getting my head around moving from a clinical, fast-paced focus to the public service where not a lot happens quickly. So that was challenging, as well as dealing with the significant hearing loss. And also, to make matters worse, that environment was very toxic.
Really?
So
in what way?
Bullying in the workplace was really rife.
Because of your situation? Or
it was just
general?
a culture of that environment, but I did
become... How long ago was this?
This was in 2007 when I moved into...
That's not long ago.
It's not.
My goodness, the things you learn as you go along.
Yeah.
Did you stay there?
I stayed there for about 18 months, and it was pretty unbearable. And during that time, whatever confidence I had just completely vanished.
That's what I was probably going to ask you as well. To be told that your hearing was going to be affected for the rest of your life and probably nothing could be done, thankfully something was. To deal with that loss, the grieving process, which I was talking about earlier today actually, but a grieving process of the loss of something must have been pretty hard to get your head around and keep your head high.
It was, particularly with having to retrain and relearn a new job and a new environment, as well as giving up the job that I loved, and also the toxic workplace environment. It really did erode my self-confidence and self-esteem, I became very low and was not in a good place.
No, I feel for you there. Had you thought about having an implant, a cochlear implant, prior to that job? Had you had it before you went into that government job?
No, I wasn't aware that it was an option at that point. I was told that there was nothing that could be done, and it was a chance meeting that I had a chat with Professor Rajan, and then he invited me to be part of his research trial that he was doing here in Perth at the time.
I'm surprised that people in the medical profession hadn't thought of that as an option for you initially. That's a scary prospect. That's quite awful, really. But okay, that's good. Let's look at the positive side of it. What did it involve having the transplant?
So the implant involved initially a whole bunch of, criteria and tests to make sure that I was a suitable candidate. And I also had to be willing to be prepared to put in a lot of time and effort in the rehabilitation to learn to use the device, which is the challenging part.
That's what interesting I found. See, we, with our not knowing enough about these such things, I thought, because I've seen photographs of children with a cochlear implant and all of a sudden, wow, they hear and everything's back to normal. It's not.
It's not at all. No, it's not plug and play, and that's when the hard work starts. So after you've had the surgery, which is quite tricky, but you get over the surgery, and then about 3 to 4 weeks later, there's a switch on period, and that is when the rehabilitation starts, because it's learning to hear again in a completely different way.
Really?
And also, I had a little bit of residual hearing on one side, so my brain has to blend the two sounds together, and they come into my brain at slightly different times. So it's a continual work in progress, and it's a very synthetic sound. So it's nothing like normal voice.
So now, do you hear things normally?
It's not. It's synthetic.
Oh,
yeah.
It is still?
Yeah, it is.
So it's like it's a bit robotic?
Simulated, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That is interesting, isn't it? Okay, so as a result of that, where has it led you now that you've had that successfully done?
So I developed a love of public speaking due to having to spend so many hours listening intensely and learning to articulate and repeat sounds and listen to sounds. Became interested in public speaking and wanted to learn all I could about
That's brave
speaking.
of you, isn't it?
So I've been on a transformational public speaking journey for the last 5, almost 6 years, learned all I could, have trained with some of the best speakers in the world. And then a couple of years ago, when I had a milestone birthday, I decided that I was going to do what I loved rather than do what I do. So that's when I moved into my own business as a public speaking storytelling coach.
And you talk about your journey, do you? Is this the context of your talk?
I do talk about my journey, but mainly these days I train others. So I coach executives in public speaking skills.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So I work with all different people who are ready to step up and share a story or who want help with boosting their presentation skills.
Now, there's a charity that you do work for, is there?
Yeah, so I also run Stories from the Heart, which is a live storytelling event. So we get together and we share personal stories and raise money for charity as well.
Look, that's wonderful. See, this would be really cathartic for you because you're sort of encouraging yourself to keep out there in the public, and not feel as though you were different in any way. And people wouldn't pick it up in a fit with you, would they?
No, that's right.
So, but to hear people in a synthetic tone, how then are you able to guide their voices and so on if you are if you're guiding them in public speaking?
That's a good question. I've never really thought about it like that. That's the only way I hear, so I don't know any different now.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So do we all sound similar to you?
Not now, no. Initially, at first, I couldn't even decipher whether the voice was male or female.
Wow.
It was just a sound.
How long ago did you have the implant?
I had the implant about 7 years ago now.
Will it ever get to the point where you will hear as you used to?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
I think it is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I've never got directional hearing back, so I still have no idea where sounds are coming from.
Oh, okay.
Which was a bit of a surprise. That was one of the things I was hoping I would get some.
Yes, it is interesting to hear all of this from you because honestly, I don't think a lot of people would realise what's involved with a cochlear implant. You think, wow, that's it, it's happened, it's all over now. Especially with little children, they wouldn't have had the experience of how sound was prior if they were born with a hearing problem.
And everybody has a different result, and the research has shown that the sooner you have the implant put in after losing your hearing, the better the results. So if you wait a while, as I did, those pathways have already stopped. It's a lot harder. So these days the implants are put in pretty much as soon as the diagnosis is given, and the reality is that the hearing loss is permanent. It's a lot easier to rehabilitate.
Well, if you had had that opportunity, yes, I'm sure you're a bit regretful about that. So this is amazing. So you find that you come across people with hearing problems that you're able to give a bit of advice to?
I haven't met any people recently with a similar situation, but yeah, I work with people from all different walks of life.
So this virus, I mean, is it quite a common occurrence? Do you know? Have you found out that can happen?
I'm not sure what the figures are, but it's just one of those things that
Come out of
attacks
the
that
blue.
particular. Yeah,
Not good.
not good.
Well, Liz, it's lovely to hear your story, and you look wonderful, and you sound great, and I'm sure you can have a conversation with the best of them. Speaking Savvy, do you have a website?
Yes, speakingsavvy.com.au.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks.